So good evening, everybody. I want to welcome you to this public meeting tonight to talk about our legislative proposals. And at this time, I'd like to have a motion to reconvene the Board of County Commissioners.
Make a motion to convene as the Board of County Commissioners.
Second.
I have a motion and a second that we reconvene as the Calvert County Board of Commissioners. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So welcome, everybody. In my tenure, at least, this is the first time we've ever done this. So really appreciate you all coming out and your participation. And I want to give our Southern Maryland delegation an opportunity to introduce themselves, and if they want to make some brief comments before we get started, that would be absolutely appropriate. So Senator Bailey, you're the first one in line, so would you like to start?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. I appreciate it. You know, working here in Calvert County, I have the opportunity to represent the southern part of Calvert County. I also represent all of St. Mary's. And I just say that working together, we're able to accomplish quite a bit. This last week, I got to go to Kennedy Krieger that has opened in southern Maryland in St. Mary's, but it takes students from St. Mary's, Calvert, and Charles. And we have the first 6 students that are enrolled, and we have the population coming. And it was such a great honor to be there and to see it and to know that this board, along with the other 2 boards, along with the superintendents, everyone worked together to get something like that that has such an impact on our citizens and their families. The next thing I wanted to say, you know, Friday, I'm not sure if many of you knew this, but we were able to open the Lothian grain elevator. And that has a big impact on our farming community in southern Maryland. And it was a big issue, and I give the president a lot of kudos. He spent a lot of time in a lot of meetings with myself and Senator Elfreth as we worked that issue, and Senator Jackson and Senator Ellis. We spent a lot of time working on that issue, and we all worked together, and we were successful in that. And I think that's it's one of the big things that I'm very fortunate, is the fact that when something needs to be done, we pull together and work together. I appreciate it, and thanks for being here tonight. Interested and excited to hear what we need to do to help you.
Thank you. Good evening. For those who don't know, Senator Michael Jackson, District 27. I've been honored to serve parts of Calvert County for 10 years now. It's truly an honor, and I want to thank you all for welcoming me to Calvert. I don't live in the county. I live in Prince George's. For the 3rd year now, I will be actually going into my 4th year. I will be representing 3 counties, parts of 3 counties: Charles, Prince George's, and Calvert County. However, my largest footprint is in Calvert, so we go all the way down to St. Leonard's. And we actually take a lot of pleasure in making sure that we stay visible in Calvert County. I love the relationship that me and my team have built with the county commissioners. We have a dynamic legislative team that works for you in Annapolis. We are approachable throughout the entire year, just not the 90 days of the session. And let me give you a little secret here, if I hadn't already said this to you before. Once the 90 days starts, ladies and gentlemen, it ain't personal. It's a 90-day push to get roughly 3,000, to weigh roughly 3,000 pieces of legislation. It's the 9 months before and after that are the most important. So we are all available for you to hear your concerns and to partner with you. Thank you all for having us here tonight, and I'll say the last thing before I pass it on. I am so excited that in 2015, I actually took the time as a new delegate and over the years, to sit on the Harriet Elizabeth Brown Task Force, the building that we're sitting in now. This is a temporary location, ladies and gentlemen. So I look forward to working with our delegation and this Board of County Commissioners and our citizenry to be a part of the new facility that will be built in Calvert. So we are a partner. We've always been a partner, and I love to spout out everywhere I go that the original Brown versus Board of Education is in Calvert County, Maryland. That's true. Thank you all.
Good evening. I'm Delegate Jeffrey Long Jr., and I was born and raised in Calvert County, so it's a pleasure to be here to work. And this is my second review to work with this great Board of County Commissioners and these two great senators and these delegates that we work with in Annapolis. I serve on the Environment and Transportation Committee, so those are two pivotal issues that are very important to our community here in Calvert County. The environment, our natural resource, which is the bay, and then transportation, Route 4. And so I look forward to continuing to work, represent this great community, this great county, work with our partners here, with the commissioners and our team in Annapolis. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Great. It's an honor to be here. I'm Mark Fisher. Honored to be here to finally be post-COVID and actually be in person. What a great feeling that is, and to actually see faces. I just want to say for the record, when we look at what's happening overseas in the Middle East and how people fundamentally are unable to get along, and they fight one another with arms and kill and murder and so forth, it shows us how important it is locally to work together and to be civil. And to that end, I will give major kudos to Michael Jackson, whom I work with very well across the aisle in the Senate. And Mike will be the first to say that. Michael's been to my house. We work together on legislation, and when we disagree with things, we don't allow that to get in the way of the important items for the county. And I think that's one of the things I respect about Michael, and I think that's really important. That's a learned thing. It's not something that I think probably comes naturally until you actually realize you ain't getting it done unless you work across the aisle. So to that end, I'm honored to be here. I look forward to helping the county commissioners.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Todd Morgan. I represent 29C, which we'll just say is Vera's in South, and then to a heavily gerrymandered St. Mary's district. Previously, I was a 12-year commissioner over there, and we're term limited, so I get to be a delegate now, which I thoroughly have enjoyed tremendously working not only with the St. Mary's folks, but with you guys over here. It was a great learning curve, the freshman year, much different than when I was a commissioner. I learned to count to 3 and already had 1. After I learned to count to 72, and if all the Republicans vote, they got 39. So I'm a quick math study in that game. But I'm interested to hear what your proposals are this evening. I also sit on Environment and Transportation with Jeffrey. I'm also on local government, so it's a subcommittee that a lot of this stuff goes through. So you get 2 chances at me to get the thing through after Mark gets it started. So he's the guy in charge, not me, okay? So with that, thank you very much. And to the commissioners, thank you. And what?
But you get it through.
But you gotta get to the table, man.
Hear that, Michael?
Thank you. We really appreciate all of you coming out and attending tonight. And just for the audience, this is the first year we've ever opened up our process for citizens to submit legislation. So tonight, I'm going to turn the meeting over to our county attorney, John Morris, who's going to go through the proposals. I think the first 4 are board proposals, and then the following are citizen-submitted legislation. So, and at the end, we're going to have an opportunity for public comment. So, Mr. County Attorney, if you want.
Thank you, sir. John Norris, County Attorney, and I do want to thank the board for being visionary. We did open this up to public submissions. We advertised it in the newspaper, we did press releases, we advertised it at the movie theaters. So if you went to see a movie this summer, in June or July, you would have seen the opportunity to submit a request. We did get a number of requests, and we'll address those at the end. Everyone that submitted a request was invited to attend this evening, and I'll see who has come to answer any questions regarding their proposal as we move along. But I don't want to I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so I'll start right off with the first request. It was House Bill 1177 last session. This is a request from the Department of Finance and Budget to amend the public local laws to allow a local preference discussion be held in the county, so that there could be public hearings and you could garner public input regarding a proposal to spend tax dollars. Last year, this bill was supported by the Calvert County Minority Business Alliance. It was supported by the Southern Maryland Minority Chamber of Commerce. It was supported by the NAACP Calvert County Branch 7011. Sorry, my eyes are not what they were last year. They were supported by National Ink and Stitch. It was supported by Circle of Angels Initiative. It was supported by Scheibel Construction, the Lord and Tucker Management Consultants. It was supported by the Calvert County Chamber of Commerce, and Kathy is here tonight from the Chamber of Commerce to indicate their continuing support for this bill. I don't know if Kathy, if you'd like to come forward and say anything regarding this proposal.
Good evening, and thank you. Again, my name is Catherine Maney. I'm the president and CEO of the Chamber. I don't think it's any secret that for many years we've tried to get this bill through. A lot of our businesses here local are losing economic growth or losing the stability to be able to final or be part of the projects that we're doing here in Calvert County. Even before I sat in this position, I would drive down the road, see projects happening, Route 4, wherever you go. And I would notice that a lot of the trucks or those businesses that were being built out were not Calvert County businesses. And for me, as one now in my position, the first thing I think of is what are happening to the businesses that we want to prosper and to grow. And there needs to be something in place for us to give, I don't want to say, well, maybe I will say, a hand up, something that makes it easier for them. One, we probably need to educate them. Get into the RFP system and be able to dot their I's and cross their T's, something so they're better at that process. So maybe it comes down to that, is what is making them miss the opportunities out there. But I know one thing, those folks that are supporting this along with the Chamber of Commerce, our partners are ready to go to fight in Annapolis to help you do what you need to do in order to get this through. So Calvert County will have the opportunity to at least offer this to our businesses. Thank you so much for the opportunity today.
Thank you.
This is not the first initiative the Board of County Commissioners and the delegation and senators have worked on to try and bring business back home. We do today have a reciprocal preference so that if a company is the lowest bidder on a Calvert County project, but their home jurisdiction, their home county where they have the principal office, has a local preference, we apply that as a penalty up to $25,000 so that the Calvert County businesses that are not in the same equal playing field in that home jurisdiction have an advantage here in bidding on local projects. This is the next evolution of that. It allows the public to come together and decide what it means to be considered a local business through a public hearing process, and what it means to the taxpayers, that the local business that pays personal property tax, that pays real estate, that pays income tax means to them, and how important it is to keep that business local. So this is a continuing request from last session.
If I could add, so for me, when I first got elected, the very first capital project that I think I voted to approve was the Prince Rupert Firehouse, which was an $11 million project. And a local construction company in Calvert County lost that bid over $17,000. We just bid out the county administration building, which is $36 or $37 million, and a construction company in Calvert County lost that bid over about $400,000. So, you know, it bothers us that our local businesses are missing out on these projects over not a lot of money. And so that's the reason we've been pushing for the last 2 to 3 years to try to get some, just give our local businesses, as Kathy said, just a little helping hand and keep that money in the community where most of those employees live and raise their families and spend their money on meals and groceries and vehicles. So that's our intent here. That's the only intent. And there are other counties in the state of Maryland that already have it. So it's not like we're breaking new ground. It's seems pretty easy to us, but it's not been so easy. So we would appreciate any support or help you could give us in Annapolis to get this through.
Good time.
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry, I guess my question is, we've put this through so many times. You are folks that have been there for a while now. There's got to be something that we're not doing that is keeping this from happening. Are we not, making enough noise? Are we not talking to the right people? This is what we need to know so we can help you push this through.
I'll speak to that since I went through committee last year, and Buddy and Jeffrey and I sat with the chairman. We discussed it at length with him, encouraged him to please push it through, and it never left the drawer. So we went to the room, Buddy, we all sat there, we talked to him, we said, Chairman Barbie, we want to do this. It's very important for Calvert County. He said, thank you very much, and it never got to the floor. So literally, you know, we can ask, but if the chairman of any of those committees don't want to move it, it dies. So we will have a new committee chair this year, Mark Corman, and we will see how it goes with the new chair.
Okay.
Can you provide insights as to why, though? The chairman said that. Go ahead.
I'll add, I'll jump in. So I believe that there was, this misconception from some members that it was bad policy practice in different jurisdictions that didn't want to repeat. And so we were doing our best to combat and push back against that. We had a commitment from the previous chair that he was going to support the bill. But the good thing is we have a commitment this year that we'll get a meeting with the current chair. We're also working with the Speaker's office just to ensure that they see the language. We have not gotten a commitment or a guarantee, but we're going to do our job to keep pushing forward. So this is very important to us. We have a meeting, I believe, sometime in November that I'm going to join in as well, too.
On the 9th, very good.
Yes.
Look forward to that.
So to conclude, the delegation supports the legislation. And maybe Michael, then you guys, if there's something that you can do, maybe if you wanted to start on your side, that's fine too. If you think it'll have a greater chance, to the extent that it would go to the committee that you're on, that is. So you guys, we can talk about that. I mean, that's fine with, I'm sure it's fine with us if you think, but if these guys think they're gonna have a better chance with Mark Corman being the new chairman, then we should try that way as well. And then, you know, the chamber, I think it's great that you guys are pushing this. As I said, we all support it. And a lot of people don't know that, you know, in Annapolis, we need help from the chamber too, not just on this legislation, but on the massive amount of anti-business legislation that comes to the committee that I sit on. The chamber has been often silent. It's not your fault, Catherine, because you're not on the state chamber, you're on the local chamber, so I just want to make sure that everybody understands it's not your fault. But they advocate for the big businesses, you know, so for example, they'll require 4 weeks of leave and require it of all businesses. And then they'll come back and they'll do a carve out for companies that have 15 employees or less. Well, that's not just a small company. A small company is 50 employees, 60 employees, 100 employees. So effectively, the legislation that's being passed, it's well-intended and sounds really good, but we need the chamber to be more vocal on those particular matters, because we're creating regulatory capture for the small companies that can no longer afford to provide these benefits. And regulatory capture benefits the large corporations anything that you can do to get the state chamber to help would be great.
I'll add one last thing if I can. When I talked to Mr. President as well, I think it'd be great in the interim to have these businesses who are impacted, who have been impacted by the lack of opportunity, to definitely write and document those experiences and to communicate them accordingly to the individuals that serve on the Environment and Transportation Committee and the tiers of leadership in Annapolis, specifically in the House, just to speak to exactly how it would benefit them in Southern Maryland. So.
Thank you.
I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize Julie Oberg, our Director of Economic Development, who gathered the horses and had the letters written and ready for submission. So she did the hard work. I just clicked yes.
So thank you. If I might, John, and Mr. President, so one of the things we could possibly look at, one of the strategies we've been looking at is not traditionally going with all legislation going to the House and then coming to the Senate, because if it doesn't come over, it's a much larger chamber over there, 141 members, 6 committees, and so we will be discussing as a team as we move forward what makes sense to try to get things started. And worst case scenario, you know, we just all have to lean on Chairman Corman, who I served with on the Appropriations Committee for 6 years, so we came in together. But at the end of the day, oftentimes we are able to do things on a parallel track. You know, both chambers may be running at the same time, and but we're a team. We believe in it. You have, you know, your business community and your citizens that are supportive of this, so it makes sense to us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And request number 2 is one that was submitted last year as well. Did not make the drop deadline. It addresses solicitation and panhandling in a roadway using existing laws that are applicable in Allegheny and Cecil County that would allow a Calvert County qualified organization, that means a fire company or a bona fide religious, fraternal, civic, or war veterans or charitable organization could apply for a permit, but generally precludes people from soliciting donations or cash from a vehicle inside the right-of-way. We have gotten a letter of support from the state's attorney on this one. There are about half of the jurisdictions in the state of Maryland have panhandling legislation in the transportation article at 21-507. And as I said, request is to add Calvert County to the Cecil and Allegheny County legislation.
And I will talk about this one if you give me a second. One Sunday afternoon, I got 2 phone calls. Mother and her 3 kids on the side of the road begging for money. Went down to Fox Run Shopping Center, took the 3 kids out of the right-of-way, back on the shoulder of the roadway. So public safety. I think it's very important that we look at this one very hard. As a public safety, it's getting more of an issue in Prince Frederick. You know, when somebody comes out of Safeway Shopping Center, my mother, 85 years old, window down, and you got this person not knowing if he needs drugs, needs a Pepsi, needs some food. So we need to look at this very hard. Thank you.
John, if I may, my colleague Delegate Fisher asked if I wanted to speak to it, so I guess that was my nudge to say this. So, Commissioner Cox, first of all, I take public safety very seriously. So again, I believe that there should be guidelines. I'll say this publicly on the record. I believe that there should be guidelines. I believe we must have, you know, things in place to ensure that our citizens are taken care of and that they're safe. Okay, that's point blank, period. My concerns from last year are different, and I've graduated from those concerns, okay? But more or less, I guess if it's a safety issue, how is it safer for certain charitable groups to be there, but unsafe for the homeless population and for others, if it's a safety issue from that particular vantage point? So that's my one question. And so then secondly, there are laws in the books referencing this in certain jurisdictions, but it's not enforced. And so I know this would be enforced in Calvert. You'll see in the back of your pamphlet, there's an AG opinion. They believe that there is, again, a necessity to have safe, ramifications around this for safety issues. Where they think we skirt a line of being a challenge in the Supreme Court is when you allow certain groups to be outside, certain charitable organizations to do this, and you pick and you choose who can and who cannot, that skirts the line of being unconstitutional because of the First Amendment right. So, you know, I'm in favor of safety precautions. What I don't want to happen is somebody's outside and they're asking, and perhaps they have a mental health issue or they are on drugs. I don't want to criminalize somebody for being impoverished or not being well. Let's send a social worker out there to them. Let's send some other avenues in juxtaposition to law enforcement. That's just my particular take on it. So I look forward to working with you all in great detail to ensure, but I think it's the opinion of the Attorney General, it should be an all or nothing approach to avoid that line of whether it's constitutional or not.
The only thing I would say to speak to that is with certain organizations, a lot of times they're marked, clothed. Like if you have a certain organization like the Lions Club that's sitting out there, they are wearing some type of identification. In my shopping center, you know, I see both. I see, you know, from the people that are panhandling to maybe it's the fire department doing a boot drive or setting up something like that. So I think as far as that piece, you know, when somebody's marked, it seems less threatening to someone if you see they're wearing, I don't know, any type of charitable organization, to someone that comes up to them, you know, just off the street. You know, we're and maybe this doesn't make it right. You know, Commissioner Hance said something earlier today that when his class reunion, they knew everybody, you know, and we used to be like that in a small town, but now we don't. And, you know, the people you don't know come up to you, and a lot of times you're frightened, or, you know, if you're, you know, some people are not maybe as bothered, but I do think you need some type of legislation that gives you something to work with, to have some type of law and order that you can police, and, you know, and it's above my pay grade. I don't know what exactly that is, but I mean, I do support having some type of measure that gives law enforcement or someone something to work with to protect you from just anybody walking up to you at any time they please.
Again, this is a bill that will come to my committee. So I do know that beyond myself, just if we can ensure, I have several colleagues from different jurisdictions that have these laws in the books, Montgomery, Prince George's, et cetera, who have different forms of how this looks. And so they're gonna probably have the same questions that I'm having as well too. I know that my chair would have the same questions. We've had discussions about this in general as well.
So if we take out the exemptions, you would support the bill?
Again, I look forward to working with you and seeing what the bill looks like.
Asking a question.
Thank you, thank you.
I'll say this, so on this side of the three tables, so you have our House members, and again, Bill start there, in general, and on this side, you not only have the two senators, but we're law enforcement guys, right? So we are certainly about the public safety, but it's very important for us also to work together with our colleagues and the local jurisdictions that do have this in place. I happen to come from one. And I think oftentimes there's a way for us to look at that type of legislation, commissioner form of government versus a charter form of government, where this piece of legislation comes locally there versus having to come to the state. So there's a possibility. So Delegate Long and I have been having some conversations, and we'll see how we can all work together and make sure that Calvert stays a safe community that it is, and that needs are met at the same time. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, just real quickly, John and commissioners, this was the first year of the new term. And so when we all met about this legislation this year, it was our intent that we would put forth legislation that we all agreed upon unanimously versus the majority. We did that, you know, out of deference to Jeffrey, I think, and that was the right thing to do. I will say, I mean, I'm concerned as somebody who lives in Prince Frederick with the things that I'm seeing. I live here and love to live here. My wife and I shop at Safeway. That's our place that we go to, and the problems are increasing. And what I'm concerned about is when I'm on 231 and I'm stopped at the stoplight to turn left on Route 4 to go to Safeway, if I go the four-way as opposed to the back way, Prince Frederick Boulevard, someone approaching your car these days could be a carjacker. And I want to give the police in Calvert County the tools that they need to make sure that this stops. We're no longer playing with, you know, the way things used to be, unfortunately, in Calvert County. And that's sad. And I do think that we need to look at this. And I really do hope that and I know that we always do work together, but I really hope that we can do something to empower the commissioners and the sheriff's department to kind of bring some sanity back to this before it becomes a problem. Lastly, I'll just say this, and I know this has happened to everybody here. How many times have you driven across the Benedict Bridge, which is not a bridge to walk across, where you see people who are homeless walking across it into Calvert County? It's happening more and more frequently. And so why is it happening? I mean, there are a lot of reasons. But the problems, those reasons go to panhandling. It goes to people hanging outside the shopping centers, and that is the beginning of the end of a community if we can't fix this problem. Thank you.
So new request. Request number 3 came from the Department of Technology Services, and it is a request to raise the formal bid limit from $30,000 to $50,000, and then index that $50,000 to the CPI. So today, well, in 2018, the county commissioners requested and the delegation and senators approved an increase in the formal bid limit from $15,000 to $30,000. This is a continuation of that request up to $50,000. It would still get 3 competing quotes, but it would not go through the email and marketplace. And it's for the day-to-day purchases, the smaller acquisitions and purchases.
Good, you guys wanna?
No, it's pretty simple.
The next request is a continuation, whoops, not too far. Somebody's helping me. Is a request for an increase in the state admissions and amusement tax revenue. Currently, Anne Arundel County receives 6% of the state admissions and amusement tax. Calvert County receives 4%. This is the 3rd year, if I remember correctly, to increase the tax rate to the Calvert County Department of Recreation and Parks capital projects for park improvements. And historically, that would have been about $500,000, and information received from Delegate Fisher's office today indicates that's closer to $750,000, if I'm not mistaken. That would be additional revenue for park enhancements and redevelopment and development of parks in Calvert County. We know this one has been the subject of some strong lobby against in Annapolis.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to this. So the history of this is there's gambling in Chesapeake Beach. There are 3 places that have gambling, these machines, okay? Way back in the day, there was an argument between some folks that were elected back then and Rod and Reel over whether there should be gambling at all. I think there were some issues at that time with the sitting county commissioners. Senator Miller decided to impose the tax as you see it here, and most of the disagreements were over the fact that that Prince George's wanted gambling first, because we didn't have statewide gambling, but Calvert County and Anne Arundel County had these machines. So there was some big time struggling because there's a lot of revenue involved. Just to give you an idea, the money that is collected by the state is currently $17 million, almost $18 million. That's in taxes from those machines, just in taxes. So it gives you an idea. So the county commissioners last year asked to have Calvert County receive more of that money based on the exact same distribution of other counties that have these machines. Seems reasonable. And so we put that bill in last year, and then Rod and Reel sent out a mailer countywide to say that Mark Fisher wants to raise taxes. So I had people sending me emails, I didn't know you were trying to raise taxes. And so I did talk to a couple of the owners down there, and they actually support this legislation. They do. But I do believe that it would be, and Buddy and I talked about this briefly, it was a while ago though. But I do believe it's a good idea to have a conversation with Rod and Reel, with Mr. Donovan and others, and explain, do you want more of that money to stay local, or do you want the $18 million to go to the state? And we're not asking for anything more than what any other county has. Lastly, I'll say this, the requirements of our commissioners and of the beaches to maintain public safety in areas where you have these machines is greater than it would be in areas where you don't have the machines. That is a fact. That's a fact. And so we should have the right to keep some of that money locally so that the commissioners can ease off of the budget on certain areas. It just would make a lot of sense. And I do think if we have this conversation with Mr. Donovan, that we can get to the promised land. And I really think that makes sense. I know Michael and I have talked about this, just so everybody knows, at great length. And Michael agrees, but he says the same thing that they say up in Annapolis, which is, well, they've got some pretty powerful lobbyists. So we have to solve this problem locally before it goes to Annapolis. And I think we can do it. And I'm happy to sit down with anybody, Commissioner, Mr. President, all the commissioners, anyone, including Mr. Donovan, which is who we should really sit down with. And Jeffrey needs to be there. This is his district. first and foremost, so.
The next starts the citizen request called Saving the Pollinators, number 5. It seeks outlawing companies like Mosquito Joe and the Mosquito Sheriff that are spraying backyards with pymethrins, if I pronounce that right, that kill pollinators. Methrin is an insecticide in the pythiroid family, and they are synthetic chemicals that act like natural extracts from the chrysanthemum family. That was a test. So that request came in from Mr. Tim Brenton. And Tim, if you're here and would like to come up and answer any questions, you're welcome to. I don't know if I mentioned, we did invite every requester to come to this evening's meeting to answer any questions regarding their request. And we did receive rejections from a few, but not everybody responded. Be happy to try and answer any questions you might have. Request number 6 is a citizen concerned about the excessive use of chemicals in maintaining government landscaping and de-icing the roads. They're asking for the Chesapeake Bay and other natural resources to be protected by having the State Department of the Environment identify alternative chemicals to be used for de-icing. And don't recall having seen this request any time before, but this did come in from I believe it was Chesapeake Beach. Farhad Safari, so if you're here and would like to answer any questions. Okay. Next request came in from Mr. Bucky Wells asking for the requirement to go through probate to transfer boats and real estate after death be eliminated so that boats and real estate could transfer on death without needing to go through probate. Mr. Wells did indicate he would not be here this evening. Next request from Stuart O-Ring. Need better speed control on Route 4, and this was a proposed use of speed cameras as they exist on, I believe 210 has special legislation in place for speed cameras. Asking that type of legislation be imposed on Route 4. Stuart, if you're here.
Well, his request has already been answered, because if you all don't know, there's a speed camera at the Calvert School on Route 4 in Huntingtown. If you don't know that, you may find out through the mail. Hopefully not.
And we got many complaints about that speed camera.
Yes, we have.
Major accidents because it's a terrible.
The next request came from Mike Lomanak, who did indicate he would not be here this evening. He requested that it be prohibited for a physician or a physician group or practice to own and operate a physical therapy clinic. This is occurring throughout our state and our county and is hurting our community. The issue eliminates our community members' ability to have options where they seek physical therapy services, because the physicians they go to are referring that patient to their own physical therapy practice. It makes...
He is here.
I'm sorry. Mike, if you'd like to come forward and answer any questions regarding your request, correct my pronunciation of your name, anything else, I apologize. Yes, sir, come on. I don't know how long the questions have been.
No, that's okay. Good evening. I'm Mike Lomanak. I am the owner of Maryland Physical Therapy in Solomons, Maryland. So I've been a physical therapist for quite a while now, and one of the concerns that we have, even as a business owner, is that physicians are allowed to own their own physical therapy practices. And the worst part about that is that a lot of patients are completely oblivious where they can go for physical therapy. So when they go for their consultations or their general follow-ups after surgery, they're asking the physician, where should I go for physical therapy to recover from surgery or from my injury? And physicians will refer to their own practice if they have the ability to do so, leaving the patient completely oblivious to other PT clinics that might be better suited for their needs in terms of their actual specialty, or even just good bedside manner or clinical cleanliness. and the patient doesn't know any better, so the physicians keep doing this practice. And unfortunately, it's for financial gain. So I'm hoping that we could put something in place to try to prevent that from happening. It's currently going on. There's 2 clinics that I know in the county that are owned by physicians, and they continue to refer for financial gain. You know, it's hard to call them out on it because PTs don't want to lose their referral source. You know, for me to even come here, it's kind of awkward for me to mention this because those are some of my referrals too. But, you know, there's a lot of people that are missing out on better care that could be going other places and not just for financial gain being referred to their own practices. So hopefully we can put something in place. I've never participated in anything like this, but, you know, I feel like that our community members are missing out on potential options because they're not being mentioned regarding going to certain areas. So, any questions you guys got?
Could you give an example?
Yeah, like an example of the clinic or just, you know.
An example of a patient being told to go to a physician-related PT center, and you said some other PT centers might have better options.
Correct. So I had a patient last year, a young man had dislocated his elbow, and he was coming to PT at our clinic. He lived not far from our practice in Solomon's, and was treated for a couple visits, and then he called in the office and told our front desk that he was going to another clinic, and I wasn't in a position to talk to him at that moment. So I called him back later on and I said, can you tell me what happened? And he goes, well, I was going to my follow-up with the physician, and the physician said, you should go to our practice in St. Mary's. It's more sports related. Now, I have a lot more experience than the clinicians I know that run this practice. So I didn't want to discourage him. I didn't want to go against what the physician was saying. But in the back of my head, I'm like, how can you do that? He's getting great care. And when he was going for his follow-up with the physician, I had documented that the patient was reporting that he was doing better according to these little forms that we have the patients fill out when they first come in and then at their follow-ups. So he was documented. It was, you know, objective and subjective scoring that he was doing better. Why would you refer him to another practice if he's doing well where he is? And it was for the financial gain of getting this patient to their practice. So.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a quick question. So within your practice or with doctors generally, is there any ethical concerns that are here that could be raised at another venue versus here?
Other than the financial gain and not really knowing that if you're referring to this practice, maybe because they're better clinicians in that particular area, then yeah, I can understand that, you know, but there's no rhyme or reason for why they do that other than the financial gain. Does that answer?
I think my question is there another forum?
Oh, like to bring
you
it
know,
up?
Yeah, to Board of Ethics or something to that
I-
versus trying
Yeah,
to put
like the
something in.
APTA, the
Yeah.
American Medical Association. I don't know. This came across my email, and I said, well, I'll just, you know, take a shot in the dark and let's see how this goes. I mean, I'm not even prepared. Everybody's all dressed up, and I just came from work, and I'm like, let me borrow your joke real quick. So I'm not even prepared for this. So I just
look. So what I'll say is this. I mean, you did the right thing. You see this as an avenue. It may or may not be, but that's what it's about. That's why the commissioners in the county put it out, so the citizens can bring their concerns. So let's try to work on it. We'll see what we can come up with.
I mean, the way I look at it is the Stark Law went into effect, because like-minded people like you guys that believed in just and due diligence voted on it. So why is this any different now? You know, what would keep that from happening? Someone had the idea that that's wrong and we should vote upon that, and people voted upon that, and I'm just trying to take that further into a little bit of an extension of the Stark Law that was passed in '89 to say, hey, you know, whether it's the insurances or the location, something needs to go into effect to let our own county members do their research on where to go and not be kind of twisted into going to a place that they don't know any better. It's for financial gain, not just their best interest, right? Because probably everybody in this room is eventually need physical therapy. You know, obviously the majority of the people in this room is eventually going to have to go. And it wouldn't be fair to anybody if we were excluding, not that I want to see you guys at physical therapy, I'm not saying that, I'm not wishing upon nobody, but eventually we're going to have aches and pains. And it's not fair to be excluded from, you know, clinics that could better suit your needs, right? So.
So, look, I mean, again.
No, I'm not.
Todd said he'll be first.
I'm 26.
Let's just, we spoke earlier.
Yes, sir.
And,
Follow up
stay in
on that
touch, but
appointment.
I think, you know, I can tell you from, different, entities within the business communities, we can't refer folks. We can't refer folks to bail bondsmen. We can't refer them to lawyers in that matter. So,
Right.
let's talk about it.
Yeah, because my business is suffering because of that. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize for not knowing you were here, Mike. Ms. Gowans is here. Ms. Gowans has a request to address a perception of conflicts of interest by making modifications to the Code of Ethics. And Ms. Gowans, if you'd like to come forward. Okay.
Who might defer back to you if somebody has a question. So we do have a draft piece of legislation that we did circulate. We did just get it, and at least it's significantly in advance of January. And we will obviously send it to the entire delegation. We did just get it, John has it, and he's distributed it to the commissioners. But it's titled Calvert County Ethics Consequences of Violations. And the purpose of the bill, which is just a local bill, is to remedy the situation that I guess had happened with the last, a member of the board that sat the last time, no one that's sitting today, of course, whereby a property owned by an individual who is an elected official, the elected official, rather than recusing themselves during a vote, chose to vote their property, which was one of just a handful of properties, into the town center. Obviously, that's a pretty clear violation of the ethics code. The question is why couldn't more have been done? And it was no one's fault. Just so you know that it's here. It's the opposite. Everyone tried to do more. You know, we have Mr. Madden here, so we appreciate the media being here and to be able to speak to these things, to inform individuals in the community. But the purpose of this bill, and we'll be happy to share it with anyone and everyone who wants to see it, and it has not been introduced, as I said, it's just a draft, is to give teeth to the Ethics Commission when they do find that there's a violation. And as I said, there clearly was a violation, I think we all know, and probably in a perfect world, what should have happened is the individual under law, if we had this in place, would have been required to, and the commission would have been required to revote with the individual having to recuse himself after having been called out as a result of voting their property into the town center. I know in Annapolis, and I know my colleagues can speak to this, we have counsel, her name is Dia Daly, and Dia advises us constantly about issues of conflict of interest, and we don't only have to we're required not to vote for matters of conflict of interest, we then have to describe in writing what the conflict was when we don't vote. So it's pretty intense. There's also the thing that's called an appearance of a conflict of interest in Annapolis, where we're highly recommended to not vote when there's even just an appearance. You know, I'm self-employed, so that does happen, especially being on the business community. And so I just don't vote, and then I have to describe it every time, and these gentlemen know, because we all have to meet her every year. So anyway, back to the legislation. It's really important to say that there's no one sitting up here who in any way, shape, or form it's at fault. It's the opposite. It's a highly complicated matter, as John Norris will say. It's much more complicated than I think people realize. And I'll just finish with this. This particular draft issues a fine that could be imposed, and that if there is a lawsuit that is filed, the court could compel compliance with the the Ethics Commission's order. And I think that that's pretty important, so that we actually have a check and balance that kind of works. And I think it does work today, but I think the last term showed that there was a pretty significant flaw, and a kind of a blatant, in-your-face, throwing the finger up in everybody's face of that's just the way it is, and that's wrong. And so, anyway, I'd be happy to answer questions, but if you do have them, I would probably defer to Myra Gowans. So,
Can I just make a comment?
Come on up to the microphone, please. I knew I'd get you.
Okay, I spoke to our commissioners this morning, so I'm not gonna go through that again, but I do want to speak to our other legislators up in Annapolis. There were two laws, Kenwood and Sugarloaf, and they're state laws. And we ended up, our group is called Calvert Citizens United, and we appealed the comprehensive plan and the 2019 comprehensive plan. And the gentleman that Delegate Fisher was talking about put his own property into town center, and then he elected to do other things that made it inefficient for the government to keep going forward. So we put a lawsuit on, and it was with Macy Nelson, G. Macy Nelson, up in Baltimore, and he's very familiar with the court, with the Supreme Court. So we went to the lower court. First wrong. We were in court for 4 years. It cost us $125,000. The citizens ponied up that money to keep us in court for 4 years. So then, when we went to the first rung of the Supreme Court, they didn't find in our favor. We did a writ of certiorari, and we ended up being with the 7 Supremes, the major court. And they couldn't do anything for us because of 2 case laws, and they are state law, and it's called Kenwood and Sugarloaf, and they have one heck of a history with Governor Schaefer and a member, president of the Senate. And so they were always a backroom deal. Now, what ended up happening in the ruling, the holding of the court that we just got in January of this year, is the court said, unfortunately, 7 justices actually say, unfortunately, 27-page opinion, we cannot do anything about this. We cannot eliminate state law. That's for the legislators, and they have to do that. So then I read on, and they said, but we believe this should be done legislatively. And that was them talking to us, the citizens of Calvert County. That was them saying, it's time to look at this. It is time. They won't even take a case that has zoning complications in it, but they took ours, because this was so egregious. It was so in your face. It was so, we even lost, one of our commissioners resigned, and because he couldn't take the pressure anymore of having all the citizens up in arms with him. So this needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed very soon, because if it doesn't, it just festers and grows, and it's the most self-serving legislation that you have on record, which is state law. And I believe that the Supremes told the citizens, it's time. You all need to do this legislatively, and that's why we're here. We're here to make sure that you all know what happened, you know what was going on, and that you all can come together as a group and help us out down here in Calvert County. We can't afford another $125,000 lawsuit for 4 years and tie up everything. Okay, thank you.
So
Any
Myra,
questions?
may I ask you for a clarification?
Yes.
When you say the Supreme said we could do something about it, I think what you're saying is not as a state, but as a county, we can
Yes.
put this in place within our own county, Calvert County.
That's absolutely
Okay.
correct. And the papers that Delegate Fisher sent to you all that you got, it says on there, this impacts Calvert County only. Okay? And if we had had a good board of commissioners like we have now, we probably wouldn't be in that situation. But the situation raised its ugly head, and in so doing, they disrupted the comprehensive plan, they've disrupted the zoning ordinance in the county, and a lot of things went on behind the scenes down here. And I have minutes to meetings. So a lot went on in the background while all this was going on. But it's time, and the Supreme said that, and they never say anything like that. Macy Nelson was in our hearing, and the next day he was in another hearing in the Supreme Court. And then the next week, and he told me, he said, Myra, I want to tell you something. They have tipped their hat to you all down there in Calvert County. Okay, so that's where we are, gentlemen and lady.
One point of clarification. So the state law today for ethics has the State Ethics Board adopting or prescribing two different models of local ordinances. The counties are required to adopt one of those two models. That's why it does require state legislation to change how the law is written in state law. We could not adopt a different local ordinance addressing this issue without the state law changing.
Okay,
So I just wanted to clarify.
it's good to know. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
With no further questions, we do have final comments. I don't know if there's anybody in the audience who would like to speak this evening. We'll follow our public comment rules, asking that you be respectful of everyone's time and speakers identify themselves, whether speaking as an individual or speaking as the designated representative of a group. We have two folks who have joined us virtually, and if you wish to speak this evening, please use the raise your hand function. So if there's anyone in the room who would like to speak, please make your way to the microphone.
Good evening.
J.C. Hooker, and I'm speaking for myself. I would like to ask, this month is October Domestic Violence, and our state attorney came before our commissioners, and he made a great presentation. Good evening. My name is J.C. Hooker, and I'm just speaking as an individual this evening. I want to remind us all that this month is Domestic Violence Month, and our state attorney came before our commissioners and gave them a presentation. I did reach out to him because I wanted to, because I was very much so impressed with that, and the commissioners showed that they really cared, but then they said, our hands are tied. And this is what I would like for you all as our representative to think of. If a victim is victimized and that other person is taken to jail, in some cases there's no bail, they don't even lock him up. That is so unfair to the victim. What the commissioners said is that all our laws are not strong enough. I asked you tonight, please look at those laws. You have protected the victims, but the person that has committed this crime, they need help. And one of the things I heard that they did not have to do bail was because they were the breadwinners. I understand that. But please, some victims don't get a second chance. And so we can't just turn these people loose and say, don't do it. So please, if you see a bill come across your desk, please think of Calvert. I hope you all will revisit with the commissioners or revisit with our state attorney. This is very important because it hurt my heart to know that someone can walk into jail and then turn around and walk out 10 minutes later for domestic violence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? And no one has raised their hand, so I will turn the meeting back over.
Well, again, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I want to thank our legislative delegation for coming out and joining us tonight. And, you know, we're still here, and if issues arise between now and session, the deadline for bill drop is sometime in February, so there's still an opportunity. We invite you to participate in that process, and if you saw legislation tonight that works its way through session, we'd appreciate all the support we can get, because sometimes we think our little local bill should just fly on through, but as you've learned tonight, that doesn't always happen. So we need your support and your efforts too. So again, I think an entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, I make a motion to adjourn.
A motion is second to adjourn. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Everyone have a great evening.
Thank you. Great.